I think. I struggle a bit with the dialect, right? But to really get into character for this quite astonishing role that I took on, to say the least, I put it all on the line.
I personally have heard a lot of black actors complain about some of those roles in general. They don't want to continue doing black pain. They don't want to be a slave or a baby mama or some kingpin.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Those roles that a lot of British actors have played, an American actor would love to sink their teeth into those kind of roles. So Druski's British actors are taking all the roles sketch is still going strong. And once again, it's unfortunately ignited a conversation that's been long overdue. A lot of people like to refer to it as a diaspora war, but I like to really frame it as a conversation that needs to happen so that all parties involved understand what's truly happening here. But there was a lot of responses all over the internet.
Druski unintentionally started a bit of a diaspora war, but really, I think you guys are worried about all the wrong things. Let's get into it real fast. If you haven't seen it by now, Druski's latest skit is a parody of the fact that black British actors will come to America and play American roles. That can include slaves and gangsters and historical black figures. For a good 24 hours, I think we were just enjoying it, right? People were in the comments talking about some of the black British actors who are known to do this, right? It's the Idrises, the Damson Idris Elba combo, it's Daniel Kaluuya, it's Chiwetel Ejiofor, it's Cynthia Erivo, and plenty of other black British actors. But at the very...
And see, that's somebody that's been left out of this conversation. Chiwetel Ejiofor. Chiwetel Ejiofor, that first scene is sort of a parody of 12 Years a Slave. 12 Years a Slave. So, you know, he got critical acclaim for that role. A lot of award season attention. Chiwetel is one of my favorite actors. Like, if I'm honest, I really love some of Chiwetel's work when he came in the early 2000s, when he started doing stuff. You know, Chiwetel was actually an American Gangster. He's been in a bunch of films. He was in Amistad back in the day, too, I think. I think that's where he got his start in the American market. But this is what people don't understand about the British actors here. It's not necessarily about British actors. What's really being said here is that this is a commentary on the decision makers in Hollywood, and that is including some of the black directors who have brought on British actors and said things publicly as far as like British actors are better trained or better for the roles that they're playing. You know, that's when we start getting into it, as well as a larger Hollywood industry that's always been practicing some form of racism against black American actors. But it is interesting, and British actors are going to have to own up to the fact that they did not have to struggle in the same way that our ancestors did in the industry. And there should be some homage paid to that fact. Possibly by coming to America and not purely thinking about yourself, actually looking down and bringing up some black American actors, which British actors have actually taken that opportunity to use their newfound celebrity to actually pick somebody up, to actually make a difference. You know, in my last video on this topic, I talked about the fact that not many black American actors are at the top tier agencies, but it seems like the British actors are able to come here and immediately be fed into the Hollywood studio pipeline, immediately be fed into these top tier agencies. So why don't we see more British actors that come to America actually make an effort to bring some people up? Bring some black Americans along on the ride. This is something that doesn't get taught in British acting schools. The history of America and its connection to civil rights in this country and the responsibility that many of our performers have had for years.
Cynthia Erivo, and plenty of other black British actors.
Cynthia
but
Erivo's
at the very
another one.
least, over on Threads, a couple of black people took it too far and started to really rail against this idea that black British people should have any kind of right to tell black American stories. That is when African and Caribbean people came into the conversation and decided to say, let he who is without sin cast the first stone, because y'all play our people all the time without our consent. They're referencing Viola Davis, Don Cheadle, Forrest Whitaker, Denzel Washington, Will Smith, half the cast of Black Panther. I hear
people make this argument, but what isn't really told is the fact that these films that they're specifically talking about, where a Black American world-renowned star is playing an African historical figure, are most of the time being greenlit because that Black American star attached themselves to the project. That's a very stark difference between somebody who is relatively unknown either in the UK or in America coming to America and having the red carpet rolled out for them. That's a very different thing. They're making their careers in the United States market because of this perceived prestige, because of this perceived elevated status. When Forrest Whitaker goes to play Idi Amin in The Last King of Scotland, that movie doesn't get made without Forrest Whitaker. The money is riding on the fact that Forrest Whitaker is attached to that project. I want you to say the same thing about any of the British actors that we've named.
Somebody bring up Taye Diggs because of how Stella got her groove back. And yeah, we don't talk enough about some of those Caribbean accents y'all like to do. Anyway, that's essentially what the whole discussion is. It's African and Caribbean people.
A lot of times they'll bring up the fact that they think an American is doing a poor version. People even said that about the Druski skit. They thought that Druski's accent wasn't that good. He did say he was from Manchester, which I pointed out that was not a Manchester accent. Americans actually are aware of these things, go figure. But not only that, they just assume that the accent that Idris Elba does in The Wire is perfect. They assume that what Damson Idris learned from Dub C about a South Central accent is perfect to the letter without really knowing whether or not that's. A lot of times if you listen close enough or you get the indication that this guy doesn't seem exactly right, you'll pick up on the accent differences.
I'm the one that's got to take that responsibility. And y'all are leaving me very, very little to work with right now.
Hold up,
No, that's a very simple thing, my nigga, very simple. You drive the guns to the water. You look around, you ain't see anybody, you throw the guns in the water.
Now, I think anybody would know that is not a great Baltimore accent. Anybody that's listening would know that even though he had the intensity, it was well acted for the most part. Is that perfect? So you're being willfully obtuse if you don't realize that Druski, a comedian of all things, doesn't have to nail the accent for that to be an accurate representation of what we're talking about here, right? But you knew that. You know that, right?
People saying you guys do this all the time, and Black American people saying no, but it's different, because there's some Black American people saying that these are American made TV and film. They should be able to play the roles because it's an American job. Like, why would they outsource it to somebody from Africa or the Caribbean if there's an American actor who can play that? To which one might argue, well, if you want to hear about our stories, why don't you listen to it when we tell them? Movies do get made in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Jamaica, in all of these other parts of the world.
But we've got all these successful Black British actors who have come over here and made a career. And I'm assuming if they were paid properly, Sam Jackson doesn't seem to think so. And I've done some research to say that sometimes when they come over here, they do take a pay cut. If you line them up to who would be playing that role in America, and that's what I'm saying, you have to make the comparison equal, that if that person was to take that role, they would actually be making more money than the UK actor. So why aren't they taking that money back to the UK and doing something where they can play, where they can tell their own story? It's one thing to see a person, it's one thing for Viola Davis to play the Woman King and to put on all the accent and characteristics and mannerisms of that character once. It's another thing when your whole career you are using another accent. Like, you really don't get to use your accent unless you go back home and use your newfound American celebrity. That's a different thing. And if we can't see that, we can't even have this conversation because you don't understand exactly what's going on here.
Movies do get made there, and they do talk about their histories and their historical figures. Why don't you just watch our content instead of trying to recreate it for your audience? And that's without me even touching base on how many Black American people had comments like, you guys need to stop coming here and acting in our movies and taking our jobs. Because who else complains about immigrants coming to America to take American jobs? Please don't try to sound like those people. I personally have heard a lot of black actors complain about some of those roles in general. They don't want to continue doing black pain. They don't want to be a slave or a baby mama or some kingpin.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Those roles that a lot of British actors have played, an American actor would love to sink their teeth into those kind of roles. But unfortunately, they aren't even given the opportunity. They aren't even considered. These roles are casted before the British actor even arrives on these shores a lot of times. Somebody scouted them out or attached them to a film. Let's talk about the MLK film, Selma. David Oyelowo was attached to that film even before Ava DuVernay was. And a lot of people try to say that too. They're like, oh, these directors are picking these actors, but directors sometimes don't have a choice in who the star of their film is going to be. If the producers, the white producers in most cases, have already selected someone. So yeah, it's not about roles that we don't want to play and so we'll get somebody else to do it. No, we're not even given the opportunity. And unfortunately, if you're not in the industry like I am, you don't even know that. You would say something. And she says this very confidently, thinking she's sounding articulate or intelligent about it. But unfortunately, you're not as knowledgeable on this subject as you think you are. And that also goes into another point about how the rest of the world deals with Black Americans. It seems as if Black Americans are always being told what is wrong with them, or they're always being preached down to as if these other groups are superior. When you think about it, we have been as established in this country as any other group in the diaspora, and we should be treated so. We should be treated accordingly. Put some respect on our name, man. You don't get to tell us what is and what we don't want to do, what we don't want to play. It's terrible.
In the hood. They want to be able to tell Black romance stories, Black horror, Black sci-fi. And so they don't necessarily mind as much if some British person, or Caribbean or African for that matter, if some person from the diaspora wants to come and play those figures so that I can go and focus my attention on a different concept. The bigger issue, not just for Black actors, but for all Black people in entertainment, is that Black projects simply aren't getting green lit like they used to, right? Issa Rae has very recently talked about this, and we can't all be employed by her, Tyler Perry, and Ryan Coogler. When the jobs are few and far between, it's very apparent when so many of them are going to people that you don't think should get that job. But the solution is not to cut out Black British actors. The solution is to get more Black people into development, into being producers, and into all of those decision-making roles where we get to actually greenlight projects.
And can we talk about that for a second? Because there are so many Black faces in high places in Hollywood right now, behind the scenes. So many executives and people that are being tapped for executive positions, or agents and managers that are being pushed through the ranks that are from an African or Caribbean background. Let's just be honest. They are not, and this is what we're trying to get through to the rest of the world. They are purposely not propelling Black Americans in those positions, and you are being used as a tool to do that. And if there's no acknowledgement of that, then, I mean, that's fine. We have to deal with it, how we've been dealing with it. But the fact that Druski can do this sketch and get this type of response, because this conversation has been happening forever. You can look back at Hollywood Shuffle. Hollywood Shuffle with Robert Townsend talked about this in 1986. Like, let's be real here. We've been talking about this for a very long time.
Jasper, I was supposed to go. I was a house nigga, Jasper. What? Jasper, don't you want freedom? We're going to Promised Land. The Promised Land. Promised Land? Cleveland? No, Jasper. Baltimore? No, Jasper, the Promised Land. Oh, the Promised Land. Minnesota?
And cut. Hi, my name is Robert Taylor, and I'm a Black actor. I had to learn to play these leg parts, and now you can too, at Hollywood's first Black acting school. It teaches you everything. Learn.
Yes, the Black acting school sketch in Hollywood Shuffle is a perfect example of what Druski was trying to show. in 1987, and I'm pretty sure they shot the movie in 1986, Robert Townsend took his last penny. He financed this film on credit cards to do this story right here. And it's a classic. If you haven't seen it, it's hilarious to this day. One of my favorite movies. So yes, there's nothing new under the sun. And the fact that Druski came up with this sketch, and a lot of people attribute it to Key and Peele because Key and Peele did their version of it. This goes to show you the contribution in the years that we've put into this, and the fact that we've seen this trend coming 40 years ago. That's mind-boggling to think that we've had an awareness of this phenomenon. And though it's become more popular in the past decade, I think Robert Townsend doesn't get enough credit for him actually spotting this a mile away.
Those decision-making roles where we get to actually greenlight projects. Ultimately, most Black people in entertainment are not necessarily bothered by British people coming here to take their jobs. They are worried about our jobs going there to Britain. They are worried about the fact that these jobs aren't getting greenlit to begin with.
But anyway, it's a great conversation. It's going to continue to be ongoing. We're going to have to come to some sort of understanding about what is really happening right here and how lives are being impacted by this. And all this conversation started off of Druski. Shout out to all the people that reached out to me after my last video. I got people from Los Angeles, all over the world hitting me up talking about this very subject. And I'm glad because I've been preaching this for about 15 years, you know? So it's not a new thing. And it's going to take just some understanding, man. We need, if we are brothers, we're going to need an understanding that this phenomenon is happening and that our brothers across the pond and other places in the world are being used as tools in this. And we need you all to stand up. Shout out to John Boyega, because I remember during the protests, he was very involved, but it takes a sacrifice of some kind to make a difference out there. And, you know, he's been consistent in being inclusive in that way. He doesn't come to America simply to extract. It seems as if he's genuinely trying to use his celebrity for some type of impact, some type of change. Yeah, just be honest about that. I mean, how many British actors that come to America and gain some type of popularity or celebrity are actually looking back and actually trying to pull some people up that are talented, that may be from the United States. Anyway, if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification for all uploads. If you want to watch more, please watch one of these videos down below. Make sure to hype the video and sign up for the Faucette Media Patreon. The link is in the description. This is Faucette Media.